Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Death of Doctor Strange, issue number 2. Yeah, this is a little bit different. Going to be using my regular camera on my computers. This way I don't have to transfer from my auxiliary camera to this stuff. If it doesn't look good, if you guys don't like it, I just won't do it anymore. It's as simple as that. But I'm going to give it a shot. All right? Anyway, this comic book was not as good as last week. There are a few reasons for it. I'll go into all that good stuff. First, let's give credit where credit's due. This was still a pretty good comic book that did explain some good things. Jed MacKay is the writer, Lee Garbey on art, Antonio Fabela doing the colors, VC's Corey Petit on letters, Kari Andrews doing the cover. Bunch of people on variant covers. Let's move on from there. We got an explanation of who this Doctor Strange is. He is, in fact, Doctor Strange, exactly like I said he probably was going to be. This was during the time when the Ancient One was still alive, but Doctor Strange was not actually the Sorcerer Supreme. He was made the Sorcerer Supreme back in the day before he got his own comic book, and then he was gifted the red Cloak of Levitation and the upgraded, the different version of the Eye of Agamotto. We got the round one instead of the square one that he uses. Anyway, I mentioned all this stuff before. I do like the callback. Like he says, I'm the master of black magic. Yes, he used to say that. I'm Baron Mordo now. He actually did used to say that stuff, and it was great. I love the callbacks. I love the idea that MacKay actually went back and read all of this stuff or already knew this stuff. Like, he's showing a love for the character. This is that behind-the-scenes stuff that really wins you a ding, couple tokens of favor, right? Because we know that you're at least trying. It's not just, I'm just going to make some crap up. No. You actually went back and you read some stuff, you know? It shows a love, and that's absolutely fantastic. The Ancient One, Yao, as he was named in the Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme. So the Ancient One's name is Yao now. He lived for about 500 years in what was pre-Tibet, the area that is today known as Tibet, but anyway, whatever. And Strange was never nearly as powerful as the Ancient One. He just didn't study as long as him, right? He couldn't have. Didn't have all the experiences that he had had. Later on, Doctor Strange in his own book would be called upon by the various entities. Hey, I need you to come and, help us out in this war. He says, what do you mean? Whose side am I going to be on? Well, all of our sides. You're going to be on my side, not their side. No. You're going to be on my side, not his or her side, you always call upon us for these spells, these dimensional spells that you use. Well, now we want you to return the favor, but we're all fighting each other. So whose side are you going to be on? It was an interesting concept. I say that because it's being used now also, or at least it could be. It absolutely could be. I think I know what's about to happen in the future, and if it does, it is going to be epic beyond all belief. A couple things happen in this comic book. The writing is, for the most part, it's absolutely fantastic. Here's one of the things. I don't know if Jed MacKay is Slavic, but he certainly knows his Slavic history, at least in some regard. The first time that a Voldemort Horcrux was ever brought up was actually with Koshai, the Undying, god from the Slavic mythology. He put his soul in the head of a needle, not the eye, in the head of a needle, and then put the needle in an egg, and the egg inside of a duck, the duck inside of a rabbit. Exactly like it's said in here. I think that's exactly how it worked, and then kept going, whatever. So much so that even he couldn't find the soul at one point, but there was still another way to get at him. It's what the mythology is all about. Mythologies are always about teaching us lessons. Religions are more about dictation. Keep that in mind. Not for this review, just in life. Anyway, with this, I'm telling you, man, woof. The knowledge of lore, both Slavic and Doctor Strange, really blew me away. The writing. Later on, when the three mothers show up, one of the best things you can do to show that you are a masterclass writer, I'm not necessarily putting Jed MacKay in that, but because this book did have its problems, but MacKay has the ability that novelists seek hard, and that is to not need to use pronouns all the time. He said, she said, said he, said she, so on and so forth. He said angrily, whatever, little adjective thrown in there. Writers, the good writers, seek to find voices for all of their characters. Whether it's one has a hackney voice, the Cockney voice, dialect from certain areas of England, London specifically, certain parts of London specifically, the King's English, person who speaks, in the good and proper English that we know, tip and all that, tea and crippets, fish and chips, right? That one, the one that you see on TV all the time. There's also an American slang and also Australian, all sorts of different dialects and whatnot, right? It's very hard, I'm not joking, it's very hard to write like that where you don't need he, she, it, whatever. You could just, boom, go on and the voices for the most part speak for themselves. You very rarely have to remind us who's speaking because we can tell. Jed has a very good way of doing that. Granted, there are little word bubbles with lines pointed there, but even without them, I'm telling you, all of us could tell which of the three mothers were talking based on how they spoke. And that's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic that McKay was able to pull that off. Not an easy task to do, and yet he just, boom, dropped the people's elbow on it. I love it. Thinking about going to the top rope like Macho Man. Ooh, yeah. So, still problems with the writing. I understand what happened here. Earth is being invaded by all these foreign entities. Umar shows up. Always had a crush on her. She's always gorgeous. She looks pretty much the exact same, just missing the faultine fire crown over top of her head. Tybero was in this, which, wow, that again, great callback on McKay's part. There's so much happening here that there could be... He's writing his own future plots in case he ever gets called upon to write Doctor Strange. I'm telling you, there's so much just in this issue alone that he could call upon in future issues of Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, whatever book might be put out that McKay will be attached to. There's so much just in this issue alone. I love it. Well, at the same time, I get what was going on here. They're here, but they're not here for the reason that we think. They're not necessarily here to conquer. They're here for something entirely different. That's cool. I dig on that. I don't know that everybody was going to pick up on that, but it was close enough that I think everybody will kind of look at this and go, oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense, right? That being said, with everything that happened in this comic book, I feel that the action was just too much too soon, and there wasn't nearly enough build-up. It's not all McKay's fault, but most of it is, because he's the writer in this. Anytime a writer wants to, or anytime somebody wants to make an individual comic book, right, a privately owned comic book, they're going to, try and fund on Kickstarter or some kind of crowdsourcing. Is it the writer or the artist who's usually hiring the other? Yeah, it's almost always the writer who has to hire the artist and the art team and everybody involved, right? It's usually the writer who has to kick up the major bills, the foundational money. There's a reason for that, They're the ones with the creativity, right? The creationist creativity. Making a character based on someone else's idea, you still get credit for it because you're the one who pulled it off. That's the visual that we see. But there's still got to be that one person who says, okay, I want to make a character and they can do this, this, and this, and they give an accurate description. And much like a police blotter, you're just transferring that, A lot has to be said for that. That being said, I feel that the action just kind of happened. It was like, okay, we're coming to meet you. These guys, they show up, raw, and they're itching for a fight, and then there's a fight. And I don't feel that it was earned. I understand why this was done in this issue, but other things didn't have to be done in this issue. Case in point, plot didn't have to be explained. One that's just the idea that the Avengers just get their butts straight handed to them. I know Captain Marvel hasn't been portrayed as a Thor-level badass in all of her creation except for the last 2 years or so. I'm still okay with that, whatever it is, what it is. But both she and Thor got their butts royally handed to them, and it was sad. I'm looking at this like, so what, they got to go back and train extra hard, do an extra 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and run 100 miles? I mean, like, what is this exactly? But the main problem that I found, this is the second problem with the comic book, is actually in the art. Lee Garbet is better than this. Just however you're going to look at it, he's better than this that happened in this issue. There are people who they're just there. Look, what we're doing is we're reading a bunch of paper, 20 plus pages of panels of pictures. That's all we're doing. That's all that this is when you really break it down. And yet there's still people who collect all these books over lifetimes and whatnot, and they love these stories, and they love the art, and they love all this stuff about it. And why is that? It's because usually even a okay comic book will at least try to display somebody trying to move. There's a difference between taking a picture of you doing this. There's another theory that if you take the picture after you do this, it'll just look that much better. You're not getting all of this stuff, but you gotta put yourself into the perfect position to do what you want to do instead of just, I want to do something like this. When you reel back, I want to do this, right? There's a difference, and it's noticeable. In this particular case, Garbet didn't show a single image, in my opinion, that actually conveyed any kind of motion whatsoever. We're not artists here making portraits on some big landscape thing like, Bob Ross or something like that. This is supposed to be a comic book where we get to see massive amounts of action, and I didn't see that when I was reading this, and it was really shameful. I shouldn't say shameful, but I was really disappointed. Let's just leave it at that. I felt that this comic book could have been a lot better if Lee Garbet felt what he was doing as opposed to just drawing what he's doing. I know that we hold the pencils in our hands, but that's not the body part that we're usually drawing with, right? So hopefully finds whatever happened. Hopefully Stella gets her groove back. Hopefully, Thelma and Louise make it off the freaking whatever. I don't care. But the art was subpar in this. Not because it wasn't pretty. It was gorgeous. But for the love of God, I saw no dynamic motion or poses or anything. And it's kind of the whole purpose of a comic book ever since Jack Kirby on, the ultimate in-betweener. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it from me. I will talk to you later. Like the video and watch an ad on your way out, yeah? Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.